Roll. Jim Sachs.
Recognizing a quorum, I'm going to call the September 26th Board of Education meeting to order 4 minutes early. With any luck, we'll be out of here by, I'm guessing 8:30. We'll see how I do on that. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda for this evening?
Yes.
I have a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
As we do at the
Never mind.
As we do at the beginning and end of every meeting, we have an opportunity for people from the public to come and address the board. Is there anybody that would like to do so? Seeing none, I'd like to move on to the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our last meeting as well as a job description and salary change. Any comments on the consent agenda?
Yes, on the minutes I had.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Please, you go first.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking that under section 4, that was regarding our conversation about the turf field.
No.
Part of our discussion included that our support was contingent on the approval by Planning and Zoning and the Board of Selectmen, and I think the minutes should reflect that. So just to add to that last sentence, contingent on project approval by Planning and Zoning and Board of Selectmen is what I would suggest.
I'm comfortable with that. Everybody else?
Good.
Okay.
I don't remember. I think it was just under the discussion with Ken and Lori asking for a mid-year report. I thought we had actually said we wanted it after the fall season.
Yes, I think
Which
we
is
did.
the
Is that right? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I think we went after the fall season.
As long as that.
Good point.
That was relative to participation fees, correct?
Okay.
Right. Okay. And then I just had the one comment that we discussed offline about the job description. I'm comfortable with it, but I'd like to suggest that you look at the actual title, because I felt there was a disconnect with how it was described. It sounds like you can do that after the fact. So with those pieces taken into consideration, can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Moving on to reports and recognition. Good evening. As board chair and member of the Board of Education Superintendent Search Committee, I'd like to give you a brief update on what the Superintendent Search Committee has been up to. After evaluating approximately 10 executive search firms who either focus on or have strong practices in educational leadership searches, we've narrowed the number of firms we are considering down to 2. Both firms have broad national reach and proven track records in successfully identifying superintendents for high-performing suburban school districts such as Wilton. The committee is meeting with both firms and is evaluating each firm's proposals and references and expects to make a decision within the next week or so. In parallel to this process, the committee has convened a number of focus groups to begin gathering various perspectives and insights to assist the committee in the process of choosing a new superintendent. The committee would like to publicly recognize and thank Paul Jacobson of Razor Focus for his time and efforts in this regard. Mr. Jacobson has graciously offered his significant skill and resources to this process on a pro bono basis, and we are very grateful for his expertise and generosity. Independent of the focus group work and the upcoming work of the search firms that the committee hires, the committee would like to ask the community to openly share their thoughts, perspectives, and insights with the Board of Education via the Board of Education email alias, which is boe@wilton.k12.ct.us. We're also keeping an eye out and monitoring feedback that people are providing online through resources such as I think it's Wake Up Wilton or Good Morning Wilton. And as we have additional information to share with the community, we will certainly do so. If you have questions at any time, please don't hesitate to contact us. Dr. Richards?
Thank you. As you know, we have some wonderful partners in this district, in this community, as a school system, and one of our very special partners, along with our PTA groups, is the Wilton Education Foundation. The mission of the foundation, I think it's important to kind of remind people, is to provide support for technology, the arts, and professional development. And last June, the schools, as you know, made a presentation and a request to the foundation for some funding. We have subsequently made presentations to them at their September 17th meeting. And I'm pleased to report that we received communication this week from co-chair Scott Weber that the board has approved our request, and I'd like to just outline what the contribution that they're making to the district will purchase. One item is that, and it's been something that has been ongoing, is continuing professional development, our summer institute. And annually they've been giving us about $20,000 for this. It enables us to send teachers to places like Teachers College Columbia for readers and writers workshop, to send some of our special educators for additional training, to send our teachers teaching AP classes to institutes that are designed to promote high practice, quality practices in the pedagogy involved with advanced placement courses and other opportunities for growth among our teachers. And it's a really nice opportunity that we have to provide this support thanks to the foundation. One of the members of the board here, Brian Kesselman, is in the audience tonight. Brian is an apple falling not far from a tree, since his father was a school board member that I served under in a neighboring district. And he's continuing the family tradition of giving back and helping support schools, he and his wife. So we're really pleased that people like Brian are coming and getting involved in the foundation. In addition to the $20,000, we've been able to make some substantial progress with our smart board implementation. $22,010 is going to be allocated to the high school for smart boards, $7,700 to Middlebrook, and $15,886 to Miller Driscoll School. There's differing amounts due to the degree of implementation at each school. It has varied a little bit. A third program that they're supporting and are very excited in supporting is something Matt and his staff have been working on, the iPad Institute, that is taking and developing approaches to using the iPad, to organizing carts that can help us expand, instead of having one or two computer labs in a school, to have multiple labs, in the sense that we have mobile labs. And this has been terrific. So they're donating $22,697 for that. A fourth item, and you're going to hear more about this tonight from Middlebrook Principal Marie Coleman and Ms. Isidro, our wonderful new STEM teacher, the iSTEM program at Middlebrook School. And they've donated $4,000 to help expand that program. And I know you're going to be wanting to go back to middle school, if not for just the course, not for some of the other aspects of perhaps being in middle school, but the wonderful teachers like Terry that are leading our program. So that's exciting news, and we'll talk about that later. A fifth area is the performing arts, and they've donated $5,000 to help us offset some of our costs of and one of the things we've supported is our Arts Week, Arts Festival at the high school. And that's a $5,000 purchase, and we're looking at that, seeing how we can maximize that investment. There's also finally a $5,000 miscellaneous category. $1,000 of that is earmarked for the trebuchet competition that Kevin Meehan is involved in. I didn't know what trebuchet was. I took French, and it was not a familiar word. It's the pumpkin kids build catapults teams. And they go down to, I believe, Maryland or Delaware, and they shoot the pumpkins off, and it's a wonderful opportunity. Teaches kids a lot about collaboration and engineering, and I understand from Molly, I think her son is who's a science teacher at Staples. It goes down to that, so it's quite the festival for people that are science aficionados.
I think the technical term is pumpkin chunkin'.
You're absolutely correct. Pumpkin chunkin'. And also, in addition to that, they want to have funding for Wilton Youth Council speaker program. to support, and I think this is terrific, to support the PTA in some, if there are issues that they can help the PTA, and other proposals to be considered individually throughout the year. So the grand total of their contribution is $102,293. So
That's wonderful.
none of this would have, it is wonderful, and I think none of this would have happened without the extraordinary, and I use that word a lot, I think, but because I see so many examples of it around our district, efforts of the members of the Wilton Education Foundation Board and many, many volunteers who they have recruited. The partnership means so much, as their donations have helped us move forward on several fronts. And as I mentioned, in a few moments, you're going to hear about a presentation about the exciting iSTEM program at Middlebrook, a program that will be really enhanced, I think, through the support of the foundation. I'd like to offer special thanks to co-chairs Scott Weber and Dr. Matthew Green for their dedicated leadership. So again, I can't say thank you enough. Trying to find different ways. The second item I wanted to share with you, it deals with something I learned about that happened at the open house at the high school the other night. I attended the open house, but I didn't happen to see this program, but I did want to report on it. Our high school department, our counseling department at the high school, is trying to provide even higher level of service to our school community. And to that end, this past Monday on the 23rd, during the open house, school counselors delivered a brief informational sessions to parents which outlined specific focus areas for students at each grade level. Parents had been previously invited. Some of you received invitations via email to this program that was sent out to all school blasts. And according to the counseling office, there was a relatively good turnout of parents for these sessions that were held during students' either study hall or free periods. Each of the presentation in each of the grade levels was, they split them out, and it was hard to find locations because every room was being used, every classroom, for the pretty much for the presentations by staff. Parking was available at Middlebrook, I think, for the high school, so it was quite a well-attended evening. The grade 9 theme is community. As you can see on the board, it's a little small, but and I'm not going to read it. You have it in your packet. Was communication, and where you can go to find answers to questions as students enter high school, and many of us around this table have had youngsters and have youngsters in the high school. How they can find information and where they can go to access it, and to begin to think about looking at high school as a 4-year plan, and not because, as we all know, it goes by in a heartbeat. And so that the theme of grade 9 was communication, and Pam Scott and Jacqueline Porco did that presentation. Grade 10 is grade 10 is the theme was investigating, and information sophomores need to know about how to plan for the next 2 years. And again, you can see some of the, I didn't bring mine, I forgot to bring my own copy. If I could borrow yours just to
We got it, Matt.
come out with it.
Okay.
I think, the whole idea of
I don't want you to
beginning
hit your knee again.
to think about colleges. We have a college fair coming up on October 16th, I want to say. Rich, is that accurate? October 16th is the college fair. That's something that sophomores, juniors tend to attend. So they talk a little bit about that fair. Grade 11, huge year, as we all know, for kids in the high school. Let me back up. Grade 10 was led by Dan Pompa, and Deb Marino was the IL for the counseling department. In grade 11, the theme was preparation. It's a big preparation year for students. And looking at a year when they take the PSAT, looking at their student success plans that they worked on in the freshman and sophomore years, and beginning to attend some of the college visits. We have, I don't know how many, dozens and dozens of college admissions people visiting our school, as you know. So it's just to help students think about that preparation. And then in grade 12, the theme was, as you can see, implementation. This is where it all comes together, and they look at making sure students are on track with meeting all their graduation requirements, that they've done their post-high school questionnaire, that they've finalized. They're in the process of finalizing post-high school planning, the important senior internship, scholarships, financial aid. So there are a great many functions that happen in the counseling office. One of the things I just wanted to emphasize, you've all heard about Naviance, and many of you who've had youngsters or who have youngsters here at the high school know that it's a wonderful tool for the college research process. But it's also more than that, and it's something a tool that can help parents with student success. We use the program for the student success planning, the career interest research, personality inventories, and other information. So I really want to give an applause to the high school for this. I think it was a nice addition to a very successful program, open house program, and very well attended. So hats off, Mr. O'Donnell and Rich, Mr. Sanzo. The third item is also a high school item. Each year our schools engage in many civic initiatives aimed at serving our community, our region, and our world. One of the examples that I want to share briefly tonight is a program called, a high school effort called Rockaway the Storm with Books. I thought that was pretty clever. Rockaway Scholars Academy is a school in New York that was absolutely decimated by Superstorm Sandy. And they were in need of books. They lost so much in this storm for their classroom libraries. And apparently, it's my understanding that many of the students have not been able to return to school because of extensive damage in that area. Two of our ABC, the link with Wilton that's interesting is that two of our ABC scholars attended that school prior to coming to Wilton High School. And the class of 2016 wants to help them out by replacing these books that were lost during the storm. And students are being asked to donate any of the titles. They publish lists of what the school needs. I tried to contact them this summer, and I could not get through after multiple attempts. But we finally did get through to them, and we got lists of what they needed. And the options are that students can donate, or families can donate books that are on the list of books that they need, or they can purchase a copy of any of the books and put them in a donations box, or make donations by check payable to Project 2016. And I'd like to hats off to PTSA President Claire Craven for her efforts in organizing this effort. She's been very diligent, did her homework, and has really supported the class in this effort. So wonderful things the high school community doing for others.
Where would those checks be delivered to?
I would assume they could be brought to the office at the high school.
Yeah, you can bring them there. And ultimately, they want to go down and present to the school with a presentation. So looking forward to it.
So the high school office.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Or Kim down below.
And where can we find the list of books that they're looking for, the titles?
Can we put that on your website, perhaps? Put it on the high school website?
Yeah, I'll look into that. Yeah.
Given that we broadcast this, just make sure it's on the outside of the firewall so people watching can get to it. Thanks. Thank you. We now move on to committee reports. Karen?
She's got
By the regular, the only one who can.
The permanent certificate of occupancy for the restrooms at Middlebrook and for the restrooms at the high school was issued by the town building department on September 16th.
Congratulations.
The Middlebrook roof punch list should be completed this week, and then the roofing manufacturer, which is Firestone, will then do a warranty inspection. The Miller Driscoll project, 14 parents responded indicating an interest in participating in the parent focus group October 1st, and I am working with the folks at Taisu Kim to refine the questions in the format.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. At this point, we move on to the summer curriculum projects discussion led by Dr. Smith. It's on for review and discuss.
So I've gotten some feedback from the peanut gallery that they cannot hear me when I speak at this table. So my mother actually teaches public speaking and admonishes me regularly about using my diaphragm.
See, our mothers do have an impact.
So I apologize if it sounds like I'm shouting at you, but I want to make sure everybody in the back can hear me. And Dr.
barely hear
Richards
you.
suggested that I sit in a rather awkward position so that they can hear me. So,
If it gets worse, we'll get a
Not
portable
ignoring
sound
you.
field in here.
so I wanted to share with you some of the important work that our teachers and instructional leaders engaged in this summer around curriculum. In your packet, you have a number of, you have a complete annotated list of all of the projects that were completed this summer. I do want to start by apologizing that I didn't get this to you earlier. With the start of school and the number of layers of approval of these projects, it was a bit of a challenge to get them in time. We already had this on the calendar, and so we were chasing people down. However, if you have any questions after you have a more thorough read of it, I would be more than willing to come back here and talk to you more about it and answer some questions. The vast majority of those projects involved mapping and aligning our curriculum, developing assessment tools, and kind of refining our program implementation. But I did want to take just a few minutes and share with you some of the highlights. Okay? So in the area of reading and language arts, English language arts, at the elementary school level, we had teams of teachers taking the units of instruction and refining and further developing them based upon their learning last year in terms of the new Readers and Writers Workshop model and in relation to the Common Core state standards. At the secondary level, teachers worked on mapping the language arts curriculum, creating formative assessments, and modifying the curriculum for some of our struggling learners. As we move towards alignment with the Common Core curriculum and the rigor that they require, we're finding that we need to spend more time modifying assignments, assessments, and things like that for some of our students who are struggling. In the area of math, the teachers took what they had learned during the year, the first year of implementation of the Math in Focus program, and refined the pacing calendars, assessments, learning activities, and report card standards for that program. At the secondary level, there was a lot of work done on algebra and geometry in terms of aligning it and mapping it to the Common Core, and also trying to enhance the vertical alignment between the courses given that change in alignment to the Common Core. And again, to modify some curricula to meet the needs of some of our struggling students. In science, the elementary schools aligned their units of instruction to the Connecticut State Frameworks in Science, and they also created some level texts to go along with those units of instruction, which for me was a very nice indication that what they're learning in Readers and Writers Workshop is generalizing to other areas. So instead of giving everybody the same science book, they're realizing that having level text on the same content is probably a better way to go with our students. The high school staff worked on aligning and revising the AP Earth Science and AP Biology courses to reflect changes in the national AP curriculum. In social studies, the elementary schools created some new units of instruction to address critical thinking and collaboration. In fact, I read a very nice unit of instruction, a country study on Brazil in second grade. It's a very nice work at Mildred Driscoll. They also did a lot in terms of aligning horizontally in terms of the shared experiences across grade levels and units. The high school worked on developing the audit for the redesign of the AP United States History course and they also aligned the Introduction to Psychology courses to the Common Core State standards. There was a lot of work done this summer in terms of world languages. Cider Mill teachers mapped the 4th grade curriculum and created 7 thematic units of instruction, including final assessments for each unit. At Middlebrook, teachers worked on modifying the Spanish scope and sequence to align to the vision of teaching and learning. And there was a lot of work done at the high school. They revised the Spanish 4 honors curriculum to reflect the integration of the Choices program. They developed the Spanish 4-5 honors course curriculum, including 4 thematic units. They prepared the new syllabus for the AP Spanish course based upon a new exam format. And they developed course descriptions, materials, and assessments for the French 4 curriculum and a new syllabus and curriculum map for the French 6 honors program. They also developed the German 4 honors course curriculum. So there was a lot of work done, particularly at those more advanced levels. In terms of physical education, I think we have now completely finished mapping the entire K-12 curriculum on Rubicon Atlas, so that was quite an accomplishment. And they also worked to improve some of the skill progressions and activity selections within the common units of instruction between grade levels. In the area of technology, the teachers worked to incorporate iPads, smartboard lessons, and what are called interactive response devices, little clickers, to promote student engagement and to create additional opportunities for students to conduct authentic research. Guidance counselors created materials to address the development of student success plans and revised materials to support anticipated revisions of the advisory program. And finally, in the applied arts, teachers developed a scope and sequence for the wellness and nutrition program, mapped and updated the child development 1 and 2 courses, and updated the current maps for web design and computer programming. So that's just a brief highlight in terms of the many summer curriculum projects that our teachers worked on. Again, if you have more questions after reading that more thoroughly, I can come back and answer those, and we can talk about it a little bit more. I did want to take this opportunity to thank all of our teachers for their time and effort, the time and effort they devoted during their summer vacation for this important work. And I would like to thank all of my colleagues, my building level colleagues, for overseeing the completion of this important work. I do think it's going to have a very important and long-lasting impact on student learning.
Quick question for you.
Sure.
Somewhat. Regarding the math, last year was our implementation year of Math and Focus, and there were a couple grades where we were not implementing it. It varied. So is it safe to say that this year we're fully going with it from K through, I think it's the 8th grade?
I believe is Cheryl here?
No.
I believe at this point, 2nd and 3rd grade have now moved towards implementation of the Math and Focus program.
So all of that, the whole implementation of it is all going?
It's a multi-year. I
Yes.
can't remember
Okay.
whether there were
Yes.
segments of it that are going to be in the 3rd year. So maybe
okay.
it is a rollout over several years,
Right.
and I can't remember
I'm
if
getting
everything will be
confused
done
with the
this year.
Readers and Writers Workshop because they were implementing that in a staggered way as
Okay.
well. I
Well-
know that the Readers and Writers Workshop is now across all 3
Okay.
grade levels. Math and Focus is in at least 2. I think in the 3rd, actually in 2nd grade, but I can't swear to it.
They are fully implemented.
They are.
At
They are.
Bristol, yeah.
And
What's
Miller,
the
just go
issue
ahead.
with the math that the teachers found that they needed to slow it down a little bit?
I
And they
think-
weren't going to cover as much of the curriculum as originally they thought, so maybe this has been
Maybe that was part of
revised?
it.
Well, it was when we adopted the program, and other districts have had the same experience. They said to us that it is a multi-year program, and so it's the first time we talked to teachers about pacing
Yeah.
of instruction, and every time I would teach a new course, there's always issues of pacing. You think things are going to take a week, end up taking 2 weeks, and other things you think are 2 weeks you might do in 4 days. So it really was feeling their way along, and we worked closely with the trainers and monitored where we were on the journey. And the report that we heard, the board heard, I think in June, I think the sentiment was that we had done a good job in that first year, and that there were some lessons learned you always tweak the curriculum a little bit the next year. And so I think that they were happy with the progress that they had made in that first year. So it is, we knew all along it was going to be a 2-year process.
I recalled hearing it was going to be a 3-year
And
implementation.
that will,
And that was supported by what I heard at open house at Middlebrook the other night from the math IL.
Okay.
It said it's going smoothly and it'll be fully implemented end of next year.
As a matter of fact, in my next presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about the development of implementation at an organizational and teacher level.
Gotcha. Other questions?
Yes, it's been a while since we've had an update on curriculum mapping and where we are across the curriculum. Could we get an update at some point how we are and where we're
Sure,
still lacking?
I can do that.
Other questions?
I was just trained in the curriculum mapping program, I think, was it yesterday?
It was Tuesday.
Tuesday. So
Watch one
I've just learned how to run the analytics, so I will try to find some time to do that and come back with you with some answers on that.
I have a question about the Introduction to Psychology course at the high school, which you said was aligned to meet Common Core state standard requirements. What does the psychology course have to do with Common Core state standards, since they pertain to math and English,
Right.
English language?
I think what they're trying to do is align to the spirit of the Common Core, which is to make sure that we're focusing more on higher level reasoning skills and problem solving. Actually, all of our subject areas have taken the spirit of the Common Core to heart and reference it when they're developing curricula.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it has to do too with what Chuck talked about the other night about the collaboration,
Yeah.
collaborative learning, and about, as he said, about writing and reading more deeply in nonfiction literature, in nonfiction work, which is something that our kids are. We spend a lot of time with fiction, and as Chuck said, there's a shift to doing much more reading in nonfiction, because that's the kind of reading most people do in high school, college, and adulthood. So that's what he meant by the spirit of it. We're trying to expand that type of teaching into all of our courses.
Okay.
It's not just, unfortunately, it just started, as you said, with language arts and math. And I think
But I even hear art teachers talking about, again, the concepts that are embedded in Common Core in terms of higher order thinking and problem solving, collaboration, and making connections. And I think that's good. I think it's good that they're again, trying to raise a level of rigor in terms of what we do with students.
Thank you. Mr. Sanzo, did you have something to add to that?
I think
Mr. O'Donnell.
I
Or
was
Mr.
just
O'Donnell,
gonna
sorry.
add, we've shifted psychology into the social studies department as well, so they're looking at it through a different lens as well, with Eileen Keeley's great curricular expertise, so that's part of it as well, shifted into social studies.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Laura, did you have something?
And so, in the future, will other social studies classes be also following that?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, my next presentation, I think, will address some of that.
Build up.
Yes.
So before you get to
Innovation.
that, I only have one question. This was obviously your first summer here, coming from Greenwich. How would you compare and contrast the work that we did during our summer curriculum projects versus the district that you came from? Can you give us some insights?
Sure. I mean, to understand, to answer that, you need to understand that there's a very different structure in place in Greenwich for curriculum development. We have full-time curriculum coordinators.
we stole one of them too.
Yes, you did. For K-12, but then the high school also has curriculum administrators who only teach half-time. So that work is generally done by administrators in Greenwich over a course of time. And we have a very, not we, they, have a cycle by which they review curricula. It's every 7 years a curriculum is reviewed in a very structured process, then revised, takes all year, big committee, all of that sort of stuff. What I see going on here is it's more organic. We use our teachers and our instructional leaders to shape and actually create the curriculum. In my opinion, I think we probably get a lot more buy-in from the curriculum here because it was created by the people who are using it, rather than kind of a top-down approach that went on with Greenwich. I think it results in a little bit more inconsistency here because we have different groups of people working on it, whereas before, for language arts, K to 12, one person did all of the work.
Is it possible that that inconsistency could be addressed through the curriculum mapping process?
Yes. My initial impression with the curriculum mapping process is that we need to provide more training to some of the people who are entering the curriculum maps in terms of quality. And there are ways to structure those kind of quality indicators.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
At this point, we move on to strategic improvement and assessment. It's on for review and discuss, and Dr. Smith is calling the floor.
Okay, so the second thing I wanted to talk to you about tonight was the annual testing report and the strategic improvement plan. And I'd like to recommend some modifications to both based upon the upcoming transition that we're going to be making from the CMT CAP to the SBAC. If you recall from my presentation a few weeks ago, the SBAC stands for the Smarter Balanced Assessment and Consortium Assessment that is Common Core aligned and will replace the state-mandated end-of-year test, the CAP CMT. Now, in reviewing prior testing reports, what I've noticed is that they include the results of the CAP CMT among other assessment results. But they also include analyses and action plans to either maintain or improve upon those results. Now, given that it's almost certain that we are not going to be administering the CMT or CAP at the end of this year, we are most likely going to be moving towards the SBAC. We would like to recommend that the testing report not include specific action plans related to the CMT or CAP. It doesn't really make sense to do that if we're not administering the CAP and CMT. So they would rather include just the results and an analysis. Now, I realize this probably raises some questions for you, and I'd like to try to anticipate and address at least some of them. The first question might be, what is our plan to do with some of the other assessment results that are included in the testing report? And secondly, what are we doing? What is our action plan for getting ready for the SBAC? I would also like to kind of talk to you a little bit about science. So regarding that first question, our current interim benchmark assessments, which are also known as formative assessments, are generally utilized to monitor student progress towards performance on the end-of-year assessments, known as our summative assessment, which traditionally has been the CAP CMT. Again, given the fact that we're not going to be administering the CAP CMT, we feel it's important that we take some time, take a step back, and reevaluate that system of formative assessments to see whether it is aligned to the SBAC and whether it's going to provide us the information that we need in order to monitor student progress towards performance on the SBAC. Now, certainly teachers are going to use those results to provide targeted support to individual students, but we don't believe it would be worthwhile for us to develop whole school action plans based on them, because again, they're supposed to be leading towards the CAP CMT. There are a couple of assessments that kind of fall out of that comprehensive assessment system, and those are primarily at the high school, the ACT, the SAT, and the AP exams. So we would continue to provide action plans for those. Science is another area. Now, up until this morning, it was my understanding that the state was planning to continue with the CAP CMT for science only. I was at a curriculum council meeting this morning with other assistant superintendents for curriculum and instruction in Fairfield County, and one of them seems to believe that they're just going to get rid of science. So at this point, I would recommend that we continue to develop action plans until we get further clarity from the state about what they're going to do with science. And this brings me to the question of what is our plan for getting ready for the SBAC, and to the issue of the strategic improvement plan. What we would like to propose is that our strategic improvement plan be considered the action plan for getting ready for the SBAC. You have in your folders a draft of some focus areas that were derived from the full strategic plan that I would like to go over in some detail with you so that you have a full understanding of what it is that we're proposing and what to expect in terms of a year-end report on the strategic improvement. So do you all have that?
Yes.
Okay, so the first paragraph there kind of sets the stage for the plan by emphasizing that focus and coherence are important prerequisites to effective strategic planning. And that the focus areas that are listed on this sheet are what we believe are the most leveraged strategies for preparing our students to take the SBAC. If we all agree that this is the direction that we want to go, then district leadership will work with the individual schools to develop specific action plans for each of the focus areas.
What does SBAC stand for again?
Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium.
We love our acronyms in education.
Yes, we do. Okay, so the focus areas on this sheet involve several broad areas. What I'd like to focus on first is the curriculum, instruction, assessment, and professional learning, because that speaks directly to the issue at hand, which is a plan for the SBAC. And so the first focus area is to ensure that our curriculum is aligned to the Common Core state standards, is appropriately mapped or documented on our curriculum maps, and then implemented with fidelity. Now, the first two parts of that, the alignment and the mapping, is work that's already underway. The problem with it is that, I have to be honest, every day I learn something new about the Common Core. We haven't actually taken the SBAC. So again, every day we learn something new, which causes us to reflect on the work that we've already done, revise it, and then remap it. So although a lot of that work has been done, it's not work that ever really finishes. We will be continually looking at the alignment to the Common Core and remapping it. The last part of that, implementing the curriculum with fidelity, I have to admit, is an area of growth for us. We need to make sure that the written curriculum is actually the enacted curriculum. And I do have some ideas in ways in which we can monitor the implementation of the curriculum. We're also going to continue to develop and implement instructional practices and programs that support the implementation of a Common Core aligned curriculum. In my presentation a few weeks ago, I tried to make connections between some of the expectations of the Common Core and things that we are doing in terms of program and practices. And the first two on the list, the Math and Focus program and the Readers and Writers Workshop, are good examples of that. It's work that's already begun, but it's work that we need to continue for several years. Whenever an organization or teachers adopt a new practice or a new program, they go through some developmental stages of integration. The first year or so is usually a mechanical use of that practice or program. Then they begin to incorporate it more into more of a routine use. Then they start to reflect on, refine on it before they get to integration. And it's a very recursive process that takes several years before we can feel like we've actually mastered the practice of the program. So we will be continuing to support our teachers as they go through those developmental processes for both math and reading. We are continuing to have Math and Focus trainers come in, and we have hired somebody by the name of Jen Saravallo, who is a national expert affiliated with Teachers College, who is supporting our teachers as they make these instructional shifts that I mentioned. Literacy in history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. And I think this answers some of the questions that came up before. As I said in my presentation, the Common Core does now require that content area teachers address fairly rigorous literacy standards deeply and effectively. And I have to say, of all the instructional shifts, that is probably the most challenging for everybody in this country. And so we need to support our teachers in doing that. STEM is absolutely aligned to the expectations of the Common Core. As I mentioned, mathematical modeling is an important concept in the Common Core, and that involves using math to explain, describe, and investigate real-world problems, particularly those related to science, engineering, and technology. So this program will absolutely support our efforts to help our students meet the expectations of the Common Core. And in fact, you will be hearing a presentation later on about that. I had mentioned digital learning. The Common Core expects a fairly high level of competence from our students in terms of how they acquire information, process information, and present information. So we will need to continue to infuse that into our instructional practices and into our classrooms. Full-day kindergarten. From what I understand, one of the reasons that we went to full-day kindergarten was to ensure that our students are well prepared to meet the rigors of our curriculum and the expectations of the Common Core. So I will be working with Mrs. Jensen-Gerner to monitor the effectiveness of the implementation of the full-day kindergarten and developing some, what I would call results indicators to see whether it's having the effect that we want. Teacher evaluation and support plan. The teacher evaluation and support plan is designed to support the implementation of those practices that support the implementation of the Common Core. We actually have a fairly extensive rubric called the Common Core of Teaching that lays out the expectations for teachers. So as we implement that program and support our teachers in meeting those expectations, that will support the implementation of the Common Core. The next focus area has to do with assessment, and I've already spoken about that. We need to make sure that we have a comprehensive assessment system at the district, school, and classroom level that is aligned to the SBAC and reflects what we know as best practices in assessment and gives us the information that we need in order to monitor student progress during the year to, in effect, predict how well they will do on the SBAC. And finally, we need to develop a personalized system of professional learning. The new evaluation system is requiring that we rethink how we provide professional learning. Traditionally, professional learning has been driven in part by state mandates, by district priorities or school priorities, or even what particularly interests a teacher. Now we're going to be actually collecting data on teacher performance and making decisions about the areas in which they need to grow. And that will, of course, be very individualized. So the challenge for us now is to transform our professional learning program so that it is personalized and can meet the individual needs of teachers. There are also a couple of areas on that sheet at the bottom that are not directly aligned to preparing for the SBAC, but we all know that they're important prerequisites to effective teaching and learning. And those are safe schools, safe school climates, as well as parental involvement. And I've included the focus areas that we feel, again, would be the most leveraged things that we can do to support student learning. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and questions.
Questions?
Each teacher is going to have an IEP.
in this sense, yes.
Student success plan.
Yes.
I want you to know that the way we're approaching it is we are always reinforcing what the teacher does well and helping them to leverage their strengths in order to address some of the areas that they need to grow in.
And I think one of the things, and you've heard me complain about some of the procedural problems with the new system, but we really believe that one of the real strengths of it is the promoting of people and helping people grow as reflective practitioners, so that they're really thinking a great deal and talking about their practice as part of their growth.